Good morning. Happy Flush the Format Friday, 194.0 and Amy K.
We just got a letter. We just got a letter. We just got a letter. Wonder who it's from.
So, Tia's got a weird one today in a mailbag situation and curious what you would make of this. Have you ever watched something like one of those, like a Twilight or any of that, and been like, man, they've sure done a good job of romanticizing the concept of being with a vampire. They're kind of a sexual being, right?
I mean, I've never thought I want to be with a vampire, especially after Twilight. Edward Cullen's just not my thing.
Didn't do it for you, huh?
No.
You're more Team Jacob?
I wouldn't say team either.
What do you make of this? Tia says, this is probably appropriate for you guys given that it's almost Halloween. I've been dating a guy for about 7 months. We met in public just while we're out drinking, and I actually went up and I asked him for his contact information. He is gorgeous, almost like he was made in a lab, and he's a great guy, very attentive, very funny. He was perfect for about 6.5 months, and then a couple of weeks ago, he told me something right as it started to get serious. Last week, he said, I've got to tell you something, especially this close to Halloween. It's important that you know that I'm a vampire.
What?
He cuts to the chase, and he says, I'm actually not joking after I laughed.
Stop.
And he said, I actually do consider myself to be a vampire. I identify as a vampire. I don't drink human blood, but I do eat nearly raw steak every day. I generally sleep during the day. That's why we hang out so late at night. And I don't like to go in the sun. Maybe you've noticed. That's why I live somewhere that's generally not very bright and is so gloomy most of the year. That's why I love Fargo for the winters. After all this, he tells me how much he loves me and he wants to keep seeing me, and he wouldn't stop. I told him it's not funny. Bleep and stop it. I don't like this, and he wouldn't quit the act. It's been a couple of weeks. We've barely spoken. Do I try to confront him about this again? What do you think this is? Do you think he just has commitment issues? What is happening?
I think this guy really thinks he's a vampire, or he lives his life as a vampire. He truly sleeps during the day, is up at night. He eats raw steak. He painted it all out for you. He's telling you who he is. Why are you questioning it? You just decide, is this worth it? Is this someone I want to be with? Or is this guy a loon? Am I out? And I'm going to just go find someone else to date. That's what I would do. The second option.
Probably that one. It's probably the one to go.
Do you know that we have a coworker who has customizable vampire teeth?
I don't think I did know that.
Yeah. I bet you this guy does too.
Very possibly. I do think it's interesting. I mean, you made it, 6.5 months before you thought he was perfect. Like, there was nothing weird going on. It's interesting that all of a sudden this, comes out. Was he hiding these things from you? Did you just not notice? Because if you could go about your life and live exactly the relationship you were living, does it matter if he eats raw steak? I guess that is a valid conversation.
Does he sleep in a coffin?
I mean, 6.5 months, I'm guessing you've slept in the same
seen
place.
His bed, yeah.
Yeah, did you end up getting busy in a coffin? If no, I'm going to say maybe not.
And when we say raw steak, do we mean I'm going to Texas Roadhouse, Longhorn. How would you like your steak cooked? Medium rare.
Considering she said nearly raw steak in the description, I'm going to go ahead and say that it's just very rare steak. I doubt he's going and ripping it out of the package. And even if he does, though, does that really matter if that's how he wants to eat his steak? That doesn't seem very smart.
I mean, they do have tartare. I want tartare when I'm not pregnant.
There you go. Again, with your cravings, man. All the stuff you can't have.
Everything that I can't have. You know what? At first I thought I'm going to run for the hills, that this is so weird. But you are onto something. If it's been 6 months and you haven't noticed.
Thought nothing of it whatsoever.
I would try it out. Say, can we just do a trial period as Bella and Edward and see how this works?
Maybe you could just ask for some more information. Can we talk a little bit more about the whole vampire thing? When did this start? What does all it entail? Is there anything else you haven't said to me? Is there anything that you've been hiding from me specifically?
How convinced are you that you're a vampire? Do you know that you're a human? I think you should eat garlic and kiss him.
There you go. Is there any chance that maybe you're kind of joking? All these things would be things
I don't think he's joking.
You don't?
She laughed and she even
I guess
said,
he got mad, yeah.
Yeah, she was like, stop, tell me the truth, what's going on? And he got mad at her.
What are you thinking about the whole I'm a vampire thing from her 7-month boyfriend?
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is it might be some kind of fantasy thing. He doesn't want to break the illusion of it being a fantasy and wants it to be more real. And so maybe he wants something like a Twilight romance to play out in his life.
Sure.
Where she can be a vampire with him also. Because if he was trying to get away, I think he could come up with a better excuse than that.
Well, because she said something weird like that, too. Like, is this him having commitment issues, just trying to sabotage the whole thing? Because that's just what he does? Like, do you think that there's any chance he's just trying to, like, he doesn't, you know how some guys, like, rather than just break up with a person, would cheat on her?
Okay.
Do you think maybe that's what this is? I'm going to make
There
you break
are
up with
so
me?
many other ways. He literally, if that's his thing, he can just cheat on her. But instead, he tells her he thinks he's a vampire.
I suppose, yeah, if it's between, you could lie, too. Like, oh, just so you know, I hooked up with somebody else. I'm going to break up with you. Like, I'm a vampire. One would be easier to say than the other.
Yeah, I don't think he's sabotaging the relationship. I think he gave you time and now he's telling you who he is.
What make you of his boyfriend of 6.5 months, now 7, about 6.5 months in, going like, I'm a vampire? Like, where do you go from there? If that's you, how do you respond to that?
Rolling back the clock with your favorites. It's a Flush the Format Friday with the Y94 Morning Playhouse.
Yeah, maybe you've watched a TV show or a movie before and there's vampires and you went, ooh, sexy. Would you really want that in real life? Y94 Morning Playhouse and dealing with Tia in a mailbag situation who, if maybe you just settled into your car, get your radio on this morning, she basically been seeing a guy for 6.5 months. And it was like a good relationship. Like there was nothing weird about it. But then he was like, hey, I got to tell you something, especially this time of year. It's important that you know I identify as a vampire. And, you maybe noticed that I tend to keep kind of odd hours, and I don't really like to go out on the sunny days, and I eat a lot of nearly raw steak. And she's like, yeah, definitely didn't really think about any of that until you're saying this. And honestly, I think she thought he was joking, and then he got frustrated when she was like, stop it, this is weird. Now it's been a couple of weeks where they've barely talked. She's like, what would most people do with this? You had a perfectly fine relationship, and then he says this weird thing. Where do you go from there? She actually got a fair amount of people, like maybe just got to sit down and just visit with him some more.
Someone did say if he accepts this delusion as reality, this is a red flag. It's impossible to be in a healthy relationship with a partner who does not know reality from fantasy. Someone else said, do you want to be with him? Will he never really go out in the sun? I think there are more questions that you need to be asked. Just not going out in the sun ever, that could be a deal breaker. Someone else said, my daughter had a phase like this where she was obsessed with vampires. However, she was 6 at the time.
Yep, there's that, yeah.
You know what? I went back and forth. At first, I said I was running for the hill. And then I said, you haven't noticed for so many months. Why not just stay and stick it out? But I am realizing this is a red flag. This is very strange.
It's a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I'm out. I think you haven't talked. Keep it at that. You don't go back to this relationship.
If you really, really liked the guy otherwise, it could be worth that. Like, can we talk more about this? What is going on? But you're going to have to decide right then and there, like, can I tolerate this? Because everybody has a different level of crazy about them, right? And part of dating is letting out your crazy. Then that person has to decide, do I accept or not accept your crazy? You might not accept this crazy.
Someone did say women call themselves witches, pixies, all sort of nonsense. How is this any different?
Yeah, but do they have spell books?
There are women who do think so.
Hi, good morning.
Yes. It sounds like her boyfriend might have Reinfeld syndrome or clinical vampirism. It's not something in the DSM, but it is closely identified with schizophrenia or with other personality disorders. If he is between the ages of 17 and 25, he may actually be showing signs of schizophrenia. That's when it usually emerges. She may want to have him talk to a psychiatrist. There are things that if she really loves him, she can walk him through this and go with him to therapy and work on it, but he definitely needs professional help.
So he might truly, honest to goodness, really think he's a vampire.
Yeah, it's a delusion that goes along with a lot of psychological different subsets. So he can probably definitely overcome this.
Okay. So, and you would probably then be in the camp of, like, maybe you sit down and you have more of a conversation. Just really assess what you got in front of you. Gotcha.
Someone else said, it sounds like your boyfriend's having a psychotic break or he's a moron. Another person said, what in the twilight did I just hear? You need to dump him. Sounds weird. And someone else said, if you ever want to have a normal, sane life, you need to get out of this relationship.
Yeah, I don't know, Tia, what you got from that. if you really want to know what the majority of the Playhouse family seems to be saying, I think most of them don't have the patience for it and would have ran already.
Yeah.
The fact that you hung out for a couple of weeks trying to like kind of half talk to him is interesting. I also think it's interesting that he's just allowed you to kind of like ghost him for the past couple of weeks and not like try to follow up himself.
Or do you think he knows she needs some time to understand?
That, or, if he's a vampire, I guess you can be a ghost.
So.